Hey everybody, it's Alex again at the Remote Work Life Podcast. Today I've got with me Mary Alice Duff. She lives in the south of France with her husband, daughter, dog and cat. A move they made sight unseen 4 years ago and they've never looked back since. If she's not travelling throughout Southern Europe or tucked into a good book, you'll find her in the kitchen cooking, baking or entertaining. Work-wise, she's a portfolio careerist. She partners with globally remote small businesses as a fractional COO and transformation partner. She runs a remote coaching program for new fractional operators and writes about the messy, joyful reality of self-employment and small business through a newsletter, Ops and Other Opinions. These days, she tries to approach both work and life with a spirit of joie de vivre. Curious, playful, and full of possibility. Probably one of the best introductions I've ever heard on this podcast, if not the best.
I'm so glad.
Very welcome, Mary Alice. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure, absolute pleasure. So, as I always do, can you just begin by telling me, I know I've given a little bit of introduction there, but give me a bit about your background and what led you to this point.
Yeah, sure. So I have a pretty unconventional background. I actually started my career in social work and community organizing. I worked in the nonprofit sector, I don't know, 10 years. No, I actually started when I was 16 in the nonprofit sector. And I went to school for social work, and I thought that would be my career, studying social change and law and social policy. And I did that for a while, and I really enjoyed it. But along the way, I realized that wasn't the life I wanted. I wanted to carve out something for myself. So I made a very sharp right turn and started a clothing company. And I ran what was called a vertically integrated clothing company. So we designed, cut, sewed everything in-house in a studio in Philadelphia, and we shipped it to customers around the world. And that was awesome, but also exhausting. And if anybody listening works in fashion, it is absolutely brutal. It's hard to make money. Margins are tight. And then COVID happened, and I started working remotely, and I got a taste of working remotely, and fell in love with remote work, and realized, as someone who's quite introverted, remote work suits me because I don't have to do as much peopling. So I don't get fried as quickly as in-person communication. And so I closed my clothing business, and I pivoted to helping other small business owners build globally remote businesses. So I do that by partnering with them to increase their revenue, focusing on profitability, getting their team in alignment, and basically running businesses that are joyful, that don't burn themselves out or their teams out or through piles of cash. So that's what I do now. And then I coach other people who want to enter fractional work. There's definitely an explosion happening in the fractional space. And so I help people who are transitioning from full-time employment to working for themselves.
Sounds good. Sounds great to me. And I'm glad you're here today because there's a lot I can learn. There's a lot for people out there who need to learn and want to learn about this way of working. You've got different layers to your experience. You've got, you've walked the talk. Is that how to say it? Yeah. So you've walked the talk. You've had your business. You've set up. It was an e-commerce business.
That's
I take
right,
it like, was it Shopify, something like that?
Yep.
Something like that. And now you're, as well as that, you're not just done the sort of, you've been in the trenches on that side, but also in the operational side. So there's a lot to learn. But what I'm intrigued to know is, I want to dig a bit deeper into your business and tell me a bit more about the business.
Yeah. So I have a couple of different revenue streams. The primary one is I partner with these small businesses. So they've been remote since day one. Like, they've never had an office. They often have team members in various countries. There's often multiple languages being spoken. And we're working across borders, time zones, etc. My bottom line for who I work with is they have to have a phenomenal product or service, but everything else is a bit of a mess. So people don't really know, they don't have a clear job description. They don't know what they're responsible for, what they're being held accountable for. Delivery is kind of inconsistent. They don't have standard operating procedures. Maybe their pricing is off. So, they might be doing really well, but they're not profitable. revenue looks good, but they're actually bleeding money every month. Maybe they don't have marketing systems. So bottom line is sub 5 million, 3 million in revenue, as small as 500K in revenue. They have a globally remote team. They've never even considered an office. A lot of the companies I work with are called experiential. So they're offering an in-person product or service. It's very human driven. And I go in as their transformation partner, and my only objective is to make their business more profitable without burning through their team, right? I'm like anti-burnout, I'm people-centered, and doing it in a way that's super scrappy and sustainable. So I'm never going to suggest a fix like spend 20 grand a month on Facebook ads, or you need to hire this shiny marketing consultant, because it's all about organic, working scrappily, working sustainably, things that these businesses can actually handle because they're bootstrapped. They don't have investment financing. So that's one part of the business. I can take 3 clients at a time. That would make me very, very busy. My sweet spot is 2. And then in addition to that, I run this coaching program. So it's a 6-week coaching program. It's people who are transitioning from full-time work and they want to set up a solo fractional business on their own. So they want to do the consulting work that I do, but on their own, but they've never been self-employed before. So how do they define their offer, their positioning? Where do they find clients? How do they price? What kind of tools do they need in order to do this? How do they protect themselves? All those things. So together over the course of 6 weeks, we go over that. At the end of the 6 weeks, they're ready to launch a fractional practice and start making money on their own, working from wherever they choose.
That kind of prompts other questions that I probably didn't put on the list of questions.
That's okay.
I because I'm intrigued now because you've spoken about the theoretical things. If you got like the sort of first side of your business, have you got like a practical example of? You don't necessarily have to name the client if you don't want to, but have you got a practical example of how you've done that?
Yeah. So I have a client right now. They're in the retreat space. So they offer retreats to individuals who want to escape to France. And one of the things I'm doing for them is it's the first thing I do in working with a client. I do a comprehensive audit of their business. So I'm digging into all their financials. I'm digging into all their marketing, brand, and sales stuff. I'm digging into their people. So I'm meeting their people. I'm getting their job descriptions. I'm interviewing them. And then I'm looking at all their systems. So how are things talking to each other? What kind of tech are they using? Do they have standard processes or do they keep repeating themselves? So for example, first thing I notice in this audit is their pricing is too low. So every retreat they're actually selling is actually making the business worse. And a lot of times, especially new business owners, they don't come from a business background. They have a passion for the service that they're offering, right? So whether it's food tours or some hospitality experience, or my husband does ed tech. He does STEM activities with kids. They're coming at it from the background of they're providing an experience that they're excited about, that they want to get their clients excited about, and they just see, oh, okay, I've priced it. I make more money than it costs. That's good, right? And it's like you need to make way more money than it costs because you're talking about your operating expenses. What are operating expenses? Okay, that website you have, the marketing for the website, the accountant that you pay every month to make sure all your numbers look good, all those subscriptions you have. And then you have to pay yourself a salary. And then you still need to be profitable. And then after all that, maybe you have debt payments and you have to pay the man, you've got taxes. So often with these small business owners, one of the first things I come in as I look at their numbers first, because if the numbers aren't right, nothing in the business is going to be right. No volume of great content or viral marketing or that super special hire is going to fix the business if their numbers aren't right. And it's not like a software company where we just have to get to scale and then it's going to sort all of our problems. No, because everything you add is another person who has to deliver the experience. So that's just one way I work with my clients. I start with this audit and then I start identifying, okay, where are our quick wins here? We need to increase the price by 500, per experience. There we go. We're going to do that our next launch. We need to tighten up these job descriptions and make sure this person is doing that and this person is doing that, playing to their strengths. Great. We need to actually have a marketing system that is doable, repeatable, and consistent. None of this, I'll just post to Instagram whenever. No, You need to have consistency. And we need to make sure all of our operations are tight, our systems are talking to each other. If we have standard operating procedures, they're documented so people aren't making stuff up on the fly and wasting time. So that's how I start with a client. Once we get through that audit, I see as a fractional COO, where's the best places for me to plug in? Where do I need to hire contractors? They work with me on a monthly retainer, and then we work together from anywhere from 3 months to 24 months. And again, my only objective is to make their business more profitable. That's it.
Sounds good, and in a sense, I can see now why you've got the other side of the business, which is the helping people to understand how they can become fractionals themselves, and all the different steps and all the different aspects that they need to consider when setting up. So, again, tell me, is there a case study or an example of that you can give? Because that side of your business is focused on the experiential. Is the fractional coaching just experiential people, or is it just anybody who wants to be a fractional?
It's anybody who wants to be a fractional, but I really do tend to attract people in operations, HR, basically non-marketing people. Marketing fractionals are pretty good at figuring out how to do this, right? They know how to sell. That's what they do, right? It's the people who are transitioning from a chief operating officer role at a company or a chief people officer or head of HR who could definitely monetize their skills as a self-employed person, but they just have no idea how to make that happen because they probably, one, never even considered self-employment. And if they just kind of feel overwhelmed about it. And lastly, they're just not natural marketers. They're the kind of people who just want to get on with the work. Like, my client always says to me, I just want to do good work. That's it. And I'm like, yeah, but
what's that mean? Yeah.
But like, if nobody knows you're doing good work, you're not going to get booked. Right. So you have to be able to figure out how to talk about your work in a way that gets you clients. So I just had my first cohort. We actually finish on Monday. Really excited about it. And, really the big takeaway for them is they all have ironed out their positioning. They know what their offer is. They know how they're pricing themselves. Every single one of them was underpriced by about 60% when they came into the program, which again, super duper normal. Like, when I first took fractional clients, I was charging it's an embarrassingly small amount. And wondered why I was stuck in like never feeling like I had enough and working way too many hours. Now I know what I need to charge for it to be a sustainable business and what is reflective of what I bring to the business, right? But yeah, they all raised their prices. They have a positioning statement. We taught them how to develop an actual pipeline. So these are the people you're reaching out to. This is why you're reaching out. How do you write cold emails that actually get opened? How do you have a discovery call? How do you write a proposal? How do you get paid for your work? So step by step by step. Now every single one of them knows exactly how to launch and run their fractional business.
It's amazing. And no, seriously, it's because, like you said, I think there's so many complexities and intricacies to setting up a business. I'm speaking like I'm not an expert myself. You're the expert in terms of that. So, I know, some people just actually fear doing it. So having somebody who, like you, who can be there with them, especially working remotely.
Yeah.
When you're considering something like this, or if you're actually doing it and perhaps not doing it to the level that you want to do it, it can sometimes get you can get quite isolating, can't it? And you kind of, as well as asking ChatGPT, you're wondering who else you can ask who knows what they're doing. So somebody like you is sort of, gold. But what inspired you to start this type of business in a location? I know you kind of hinted at it, but in a location independent sort of way.
Yeah. So the coaching practice or my fractional COO work, or both?
Both, really. Yeah, both.
Yeah. So I got a taste of remote work during COVID and realized how much better it was for my brain. I was able to think clearer. I wasn't exhausted at the end of the day. I just felt energized. And one night, and this was when I lived in the United States. One night, my husband and I were chatting, and we just were kind of joking. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live? And we both said, the south of France. Ha, ha, ha. And it was a joke. Like, it wasn't a thing. And I was like, wait a minute. Could we live in the south of France? And so, you give me a good idea, I'm going to go chase it down. And so I started Googling, and lo and behold, you can, if you are a self employed person, get a visa to come to France and start a business. So I knew that I was never going to find my clients like physically in France. Like, I'm not going to go walk into somebody's business in France. They actually have kind of an old school traditional approach to employment. And so the whole fractional thing hasn't really landed here amongst French people. So I knew I needed to build a location independent business. One, I knew I wanted to work remotely. I was never going into an office ever again. And two, that it just wasn't a fit for the typical French company. But what I found was how many English speakers have businesses in Europe that are remote, whether they're in France or the UK or Spain or Portugal or wherever. And that's how I was able to build. I was posting on LinkedIn, posting on socials, meeting people online, telling them about how I work, what I offer, and I got my first client that way. And then that snowballed into another, into another. But honestly, building a location independent business was the best thing I ever did. There's no amount of money you could pay me to get back into an office.
I hear that
Like,
a lot these days. I really
there's
do.
none. Like, there's no number. And I'm dead serious. Yeah, it's the best thing for my brain. It's the best thing for my health. It's the best thing for my family. I can travel when I want. I can work when I want. It's absolutely the best choice for me. And it works for my clients too.
Great. I love hearing this. And no, it's because, like I said, I've kind of slowed down on doing the interview, so it's kind of
Yay.
gives me energy hearing all of this. So another question I wanted to ask is, you talk about your skills,
Mhm.
e-commerce, helping people with on the coaching side, so the
Mhm.
operational side and some people along the way, if you're thinking about doing something like this, you're going to have to
Mhm.
do some sort of like self audit, in terms of
Mm.
what you're good at,
Yeah.
not just the soft but the hard skills.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, how did you go about that? Is that something that, well, I'm assuming that's something that you did, but did somebody say to you, Mary Alice, you know what, you should do this, or did you think,
No.
let me do it?
So the last job I had before I became an entrepreneur was I was the chief of staff. And so a chief of staff is a super cool job. It's the right hand of a CEO in a company, and they get to touch every part of the business. And it's really great for people whose brains get bored, who are very curious, who like to draw connections between things, who are good communicators and can be very convincing. And they just crack on. They just get shit done. That's a typical chief of staff, right? And I realized how much I liked connecting the dots, building, and not doing the same thing every day. And that's how I learned everything about operations, finance, fundraising, marketing, because I was in this position that forced me to work with everybody. I didn't get to be like, just hide in my silo, right? I had to work with everybody, the HR department, the CFO, whomever. So then when I went out and started my own company, you know, being the chief of staff at a nonprofit is wildly different than going out and starting your own clothing business, right? But the beauty of starting something is you don't know what you don't know. So you go in thinking, all right, I've got these skills, I've got that. And then you actually start doing it and you're like, shit, I don't know anything. So I joke that everything I learned about small business finance, I learned by spending and losing my own money.
Fair enough.
Every mistake I made, I learned the hard way, And so when I have my clients and I'm looking at their financials, I'm like, I'm telling you need to raise this price, not because like we just want to put more money in our pockets, because I want your business to survive because mine didn't, because I wouldn't raise my prices, right? Like I'm trying to save you from yourself. Let me help you. Um, but yeah, I don't know if there's so much a self audit. There's to get on with the work and you have to do things. And as you're doing them, you realize, oh, I'm really great at this, or I'm really struggling. Let me call in some help. Let me find somebody to consult, somebody who can train me. Can I teach myself this skill, whatever it is? But so much of business development and entrepreneurship it's like this constant self-development loop, this constant personal development loop of trying, failing, learning over and over and over again. Um, and yeah, it doesn't mean you're ever going to be good at everything, but you do get to figure out, okay, where are my strengths? Where should I be spending my time versus where do I need support? You know?
Yes, definitely. And I think to do the kind of work that you're doing,
Hmm.
you have to have that entrepreneurial mindset, don't you?
Hmm.
And I know people say it sounds a bit cliche, like you shouldn't have a fear of failure, but I think that's something that I
Hmm.
guess a lot of people will have in the back of their mind that
Yeah.
nobody wants to fail, do they? They want people they want to be successful. Um, that was actually leading me somewhere, but I can't remember what line I was going down. But in terms of how did you sort of like then stack things up
Hmm.
from chief of you've gone from chief of staff
Hmm.
and now you've got this stack of skills
Hmm.
that you've built up. How do you go from that to then business knowing that people need you and then
Hmm.
onto targeting those people and finding those clients?
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't know if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
So honestly, I have found LinkedIn to be the most incredible resource for me and my small business. So I don't use any other social platforms anymore. Like I gave them all up maybe 5 years ago, 4 years ago. Or was it 3 years ago? It's been liberating to be quite honest. And so I'm consistently posting useful content on LinkedIn. Having a really tight LinkedIn profile that showcases what I do, who I work with, and all my past clients. Um, I talk about how I can help other businesses, but more than anything, I'm just a human that people want to get to know. And I take their coffee chats. Like I answer my DMs. I give my time when I'm not getting paid for it. Like I genuinely believe, like just keep talking to people. And then I send really great cold emails, if I'm being honest. I have multiple clients who I've booked who don't use LinkedIn because I sent a great cold email with a great subject line. And so that's kind of how I start talking to clients. So I genuinely say, I think your business is awesome. Here's how I can help. I help such and such client do this thing, very similar space. Would you be up for a chat to see how I can lend a hand? And people
Hmm.
genuinely like say, yeah, and we have a conversation and I see if I can offer them my service. Sometimes it's not a good fit. Sometimes I'm like, hey, you can't afford me right now, but here's the 5 things I would do in your business tomorrow. I'd set up
Hmm.
your email capture and improve your email marketing so that you're actually building and nurturing a relationship, right? I'll offer them free advice or whatever. And then 6 months later, they might come back to me and say, hey, business is doing great. We could actually afford you now and we could use your help. So that's been invaluable for me, just relationships, talking to people online, connecting. LinkedIn is how I do that, LinkedIn and email. Yeah, and I'm just always open to a chat, genuinely.
I think some people struggle with the idea that you can use LinkedIn for
Hmm.
that. So from crossing the boundary or the bridge of
Hmm.
sort of sending a message to then translating that message into a conversation, that
Hmm.
conversation into into sort of what you're doing in terms of
Yeah, yeah.
business. Do you have a sort of like a system that you use to do that, or is it just, like you said, it's human connection?
It's human
Um,
connection.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
also another question on top of that is
Hmm.
obviously this, like you said, LinkedIn is great. That's
Hmm.
I spend most of my time on LinkedIn. There are so many businesses, so many people. You mentioned your sort of like avatar, as it were, in terms of the type
Yeah.
of business that
Hmm.
you sort of approach. But how do
Yeah.
you know that they need your help, for
So
example?
that's the tricky thing. So this is the
Yeah.
tricky thing about operations. So if you are a fractional chief marketing officer, for example, you can go on their website, you can go on their social, you can sign up for their email marketing, and within an hour, you're like, this email sucks, your social sucks, your website isn't optimized, and you can genuinely offer a suggestion.
Right.
When you're doing the work I'm doing, it's the kind of work that founders don't talk about. They're
Hmm.
embarrassed that their products
Yep.
aren't profitable. They're embarrassed that their team members aren't being paid properly or don't have job descriptions or they, God forbid, but I hear this all the time, aren't really sure what their team is doing all day. I'm like, you're,
Ooh.
and it's not that the team is jerking them around. It's almost never that. It's just genuinely shitty communication, you know?
Hmm.
It's all the stuff they're embarrassed to admit is not working in their business, but
Right.
also it's so normal. It's so normal. I have yet to meet a small business owner who has it all together. It's always a mess. My business was a mess. It's always a mess, right? And so that becomes the tricky bit, is that I don't know what help they need. And that's why I don't have, like, a lot of consultants or fractional people have an offer. It's like a fixed offer. I do X, Y, and Z. Because the work I do is so customized, because every business is going to have different issues, I don't have a fixed offer. I just want to get people on the phone or on a Zoom or a Google Meet so that I can talk to them and learn about their business. And my best clients are the ones who just spill their guts in that first call,
Hmm.
And I was just on a call the other day. She pulled up her QuickBooks and she was like, look at this, showing me her accounting. And I was like, all right, we got work to do. But like, that's
Wow.
the kind of founder I love, who is just so self-aware that they don't know what they don't know. And they've reached a point where they need help. But the only way I know that is if I have real conversations, because founders aren't just going to fork over that information. It's embarrassing, it's vulnerable. So they need to feel like they can trust me. And that is what my online persona, if you will, I think it engenders trust, because I'm vulnerable. I tell it like it is. I'm very direct. So people feel that they can be that way with me. I hope.
Yeah, and I can just see why, the charisma that you have as well is like once somebody sort of gets talking to you,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that sort of that messaging that you have, that sort of naturalness about yourself, comes across in not just in your sort of written messages, but then in your
Mm-hmm.
meetings. Not just that, but I just feel that you have like a real sort of this is who you are. It's like this is
Mm-hmm.
you. This is where you want to be, sort of thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that you've actually worked out
Yeah.
what a lot of people are trying to do is, where do I fit? you know,
Yeah.
you know. But I mean, I'm sure you mentioned some challenges that you mentioned earlier on. You mentioned the money side of things.
Mm-hmm.
What were there any particular challenges that stand out for you when you were sort of in the early phases of setting up?
Yeah. So in the early stages of my fractional practice, I just wasn't charging enough. I wasn't owning the engagement. I was treating those engagements as if it was some sort of pseudo employee employer relationship. And instead of me being the subject matter expert, coming in and providing a service to another business, right? And so oftentimes it just set up like a weird power dynamic. I wasn't charging enough. And then I would give up on my pipeline. So when I would be booked and busy, right, I would not be nurturing my pipeline. And so what that does is it prevents you from being able to walk away from a bad engagement because you don't have a potential client on the back burner. And I see this constantly with like self-employed people, freelancers, fractionals, what have you, is they accept too low pay, bad relationships, poor treatment, because they have stopped nurturing their business. They don't have a pipeline. They stopped posting on LinkedIn. Oh, I got really busy. Sure. But now you're stuck because you can't walk away because you don't have a plan B. That was my biggest trap. And I went 6 months without a client. When I finally decided to walk away from a client engagement, I went 6 months.
Wow.
Thankfully, I had saved up enough money because I knew I was leaving. But my biggest regret was I took my foot off the gas in terms of pipeline development and nurturing my people. So now I'm booked and busy, but I am still posting on LinkedIn 3, 4 times a week. I'm still in DMs. I still take coffee chats. I still talk to people, because you never know. You never know when a client relationship just isn't working out anymore, or the business could decide to sell, or any number of things can happen. But as a self employed person, you need to be prepared. And the first thing that you should always be working on is your own business, not your client work, your business. So that way you protect yourself and you can stay in the game for the long haul. So, biggest mistake, lesson learned, never again.
Yeah, I've experienced that myself where I was
Mm-hmm.
probably on the other side. I was a bit too reliant on a particular client and
Yep.
perhaps took my foot off the gas in terms of
Yep.
the pipeline. And
Yeah.
then I got stung myself
Mm-hmm.
because that client then started to freeze their hiring and slow it down.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden wasn't as much money coming in. And then the
Yep.
panic set in
Yep. It
a little
happens
bit
all
from
the
there.
time. It happens
Yeah.
all the time,
Yeah.
constantly, you know?
Uh, and when I look at your LinkedIn profile, because obviously the S word that everybody sort of doesn't like when it comes to business, sales.
Hmm.
I think sales, business development. That's
Okay.
an integral part of setting up any business.
Yeah.
And when I look at your profile, I don't really see obvious signs that you have done. Like, I can see marketing, obviously, and
Hmm.
you're obviously a people's person as much as you
Hmm.
say. In fact, I'm an introvert myself, but you have a very sort of like, you're very much a people's person and somebody
Yeah.
who can connect with people very easily, I feel.
Hmm.
Um, what, where does the sort of, because you're talking about pipelines as well, and that's a
Hmm.
sales sort of keyword.
Yeah.
Where did you learn all that? Where did all that come
Goodness.
from?
I think this is one of those instances of you don't know what you don't know. And I didn't learn about sales or pipeline development when I had my e-commerce business because there are no sales. It's marketing. It's a funnel,
Hmm.
right? You have your
Yeah.
top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom of funnel, email marketing, social. Like I learned that shit inside and out. So when I started my fractional practice, I was at a total deficit. I knew nothing about sales, nothing about pipeline development. And it really was just like a journey of teaching myself everything I could possibly learn. You know, and I tried all of the different tools, the CRMs and, some LinkedIn guy, telling me buy this course. Like I tried. None of it worked for me. You know what works for me? A freaking Google Sheet. I have a Google Sheet of all these super cool companies that I would just absolutely love to work with. I have their email address. I rate them on a scale of cold, warm, or hot. I reach out to
Hmm.
them on LinkedIn, connect with them, send them an email. That's my CRM. It's not very sexy. I don't care. It works. And that I learned everything about pipeline development and sales because I was so shit at it. And I realized like I need to figure out because like what we're doing right now, I'm good at. I'm good at talking to people.
Yeah.
That isn't the issue. Having the sales call, closing the deal was never the issue because I come to a sales meeting and I put sales in air quotes because I don't even think of it as sales. How can I help? How can I help this person? Right? I'll help
Right.
them right there in the call. Right? But getting to that point felt so mysterious to me. So I just taught myself everything I possibly could about building a pipeline, getting people on the phone, um, and also had a really great client who one of the co-founders is like a sales genius. And I would just ask him a million questions. So
Mm.
the really cool thing about my work is that I'm constantly learning from people smarter than me, like my own clients who have gotten really good at a specific thing. So I've just basically been picking his brain about like sales related stuff. And then I apply
Hmm.
them to my own little itty bitty fractional practice. Um, but yeah, I've gotten pretty good at it.
Sounds that way. Yeah.
only through only through trial and error.
You're right, though. I mean, sales is about like a natural way of finding a natural way of connect. I think it's changed quite a lot. The
Yeah.
sales before I think, used to be a bit more about the hard sell and sort of like hitting the phones and
Yeah.
going through, you know, making 150 cold calls each day. Whereas, yeah, you remind me of somebody else actually. One of my former bosses actually. Business owner. He has a very similar sort of principle to you in the
Okay.
sense that it's about connecting with people
Yeah.
based on values, but based on
Hmm.
having an interest. You mentioned working with experiential businesses. That must be something
Hmm.
that's come from your passion for
Yeah.
wanting to work for those sorts of businesses. So yeah,
Hmm.
I definitely like that sort of that principle.
Yeah.
um One thing you were talking about, okay, so it sounds like you I don't know if I'm correct in saying this, but not systematic from a robotic point
Hmm.
of view, but I get the feeling that you're very sort of like organized in what you do, um, in the business sense. I mean, like sort
Yeah.
of you sort your pipeline out. You do
Yeah.
I'm not saying necessarily in a methodical way, but
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know what you have to do in order to sort of get
Yeah.
from point A to point Z. Um, and how do you then stay? How do you keep productive? Because there's so many. For me,
Hmm.
especially as a parent, I've got three children.
Oh my goodness.
Work from home.
Yeah.
Work from different, not just from home, but from different
Yeah.
places. And there are a lot of distractions as well to
Hmm.
that. And there's, how do you stay productive in your day?
I will say I'm quite a disciplined person. I'm extremely goal oriented. If I want something, if it's a financial target or a personal goal, like I am just that kind of person who's just gonna go for it. I'm annoying in that way. Like 6 a.m. I'm up, I'm working out, like I'm kicking ass and taking names. Like
Nice.
I am just a bit wired like that. Um, but I will say one thing that's been really helpful is taking that first part of my day, like when I do sit down to do work, and focusing exclusively on my business. So I don't start my client work until about like 10:15, but I start my workday around 8:15. Um, and so that ensures that my business is getting the attention it deserves every day. It's never like being pushed to the back burner. Also, quite frankly, I am a foreigner. I'm an immigrant living in a country who could decide at any time to say, no, thank you, you can go now. And so the more successful my business is, the more likely they are to allow me to stay, and the more likely I could attain French citizenship, which then means I have freedom of mobility all throughout the European
Mhm.
Union. That's a hell of a motivator. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
you aren't kicking me out. Like, I'm staying here.
Fair
And then
enough.
thirdly, I love money. I mean, I'm just gonna be out with it. Like I have a family to support. I don't come from
Yeah.
wealth. I have no backup plan. There's nobody back in the United States who could send me a check if I was in a pinch. It is just me. I'm married. I've got an 11-year-old daughter, and I just am absolutely hell bent on helping her build generational wealth, so she has access to the opportunities that I just didn't have. So yeah, I guess those three things keep me pretty on it, like
Focused. Yeah.
I don't feel like sending that cold email today. And I'm like, do I hate cold emails more than I love money?
Yeah.
No, I'm
No.
sending the cold email.
I hear you. I hear you. So you were you gave us quite a little bit of a sort of a hint in terms of your calendar. So
Mhm.
no, so your daily sort of schedule.
Yeah.
Um, you so do you're working out at
Hmm.
6 a.m. Is
Yeah.
that, and then you're sort of like, you get into 8 a.m., you get into sort of you mentioned your business work, and then how does that look? How does that day
Yeah.
look
Yeah.
for you?
So I'm up at 6, and then I take my daughter to school. I ride her on my bike to school. I'm back at my desk by 8:15. I'm doing my own business work from like 8:15 to 10. And so that could be following up with my coaching clients. It could be business development. It could be writing LinkedIn content. It could be working on my newsletter. Any of those things, right? Then on Mondays in particular, I like to stack up all my client meetings, my face-to-face time with all like my principals. So anybody I'm doing fractional COO work, I like to meet with the founder every Monday so that we can plot out the week together. Here's the things I'm working on. These are my priorities. Do they align with your priorities? Here's how they tie to the bigger picture, etc. And then I'm off to the races for the rest of the week, prioritizing various client projects, and just like getting shit done, basically. But I really do try to break up my day so that that first part of the day is on my business. Second part of the day is on the client. I like to take a decent lunch, go for a walk my dog, and then I wrap up. But I have been finding that I'm trying to lean more into like my natural energy and rhythms. And if I'm feeling particularly inspired to write something on a Sunday afternoon, like I do it. I don't have 3 kids, just the one. And I am finding like, you know, I have more time now to kind of dedicate to just like writing and being creative. And so really trying to enjoy that. But my days are pretty structured. But then again, if like I'm feeling like shit and I just don't want to work that day, I'll close the laptop and go for a walk, go run errands, go find something to do. Because my work is asynchronous for the most part. People don't need immediate answers from me. I'm not
Hmm.
working on things that are like urgent. They're more long term and strategic. I do have a virtual assistant who I can delegate tasks to. And then with the clients I work with, I also have team members I can delegate things to. So, um, yeah, I mean, it's pretty structured, but I also have a lot of flexibility. That's for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And that acronym AI is sort of floating around a lot in different spheres of work.
Yeah.
Um, is AI something, or any sort of
Yeah.
forms of automation? Are you using any of that to sort of put you in an advantage in terms that asynchronous work's brilliant,
Yeah.
but anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a ChatGPT power user for sure. So like a lot of the things that I'll be doing, when I'm like developing the best process for doing something. So I go through the process a couple of times and then I make a voice note. I dump it into ChatGPT and into a template that I've created. And now we have a standard operating procedure for that thing that I can then share with the team. Whether it's creating a content calendar or I'll have a team meeting with a bunch of people and then we need to get what we talked about into an Asana project. So I'll dump the transcript into ChatGPT and I'll tell it, make it into an Asana project with all of my headers, who's doing what, suggested deadlines, and then we're just dropping that into Asana. So I definitely am using ChatGPT in my day-to-day work, and I'm starting to experiment with some new tools like AI agents. So instead of just a single prompt, it's actual like AI powered agents doing one prompt from the next to the next. So create a creative brief for this blog post. Great. Write the blog post. Human reviews it. Great. Post the blog post to the website. Great. Go onto Canva and create a pin for the blog post. Okay. Go onto Pinterest and pin the pin linking back to the website. Do that 100 times. So that's
Hmm.
what we're experimenting with right now. The reality is, like, I wouldn't be able to manage the client load that I have plus my coaching program as a one-person business if I didn't have AI tools. It would just be impossible.
Yeah, I did think that it's like a lot.
Yeah.
It's coach. Some people just have a coaching business, and that's that
Yeah.
sort of like. So yeah, I have to take my hat off to you for that. But so I know you've got the coaching side of your business,
Yeah.
but for anybody listening, what advice would you give to anybody who was looking to start their own
Yeah.
location independent freelance business or to become a fractional like
Yeah.
yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the little hacks that I've shared with people online, just to kind of get you thinking more like an entrepreneur and less like an employee. So to take your resume and beef it up with everything you've ever done. Don't worry, if things aren't related. Put all of your skills, all of your accomplishments, things that you really love, projects you've led, put it into ChatGPT and ask it the following. If I were self-employed, if I was going to start a business of one, suggest some service offerings I could offer with my skills and interests and my accomplishments using that information. And then who would I sell those services to? And that will give you a chance for you to kind of zoom out and say, okay, I've been doing HR work. Oh, look, there's this common denominator between all of these companies. They all, are in the food industry. Okay, that's interesting. I could sell myself as a fractional HR person for small businesses in the food space, something to that effect. But what this activity does is it gets you to start thinking as someone independent from a company, someone independent from relying on a paycheck from a single employer, and gets you to start thinking of how can you take your skills, your services, your experiences, your preferences, and craft them in a way that works for you, right? That aligns with your life and also is sellable and who it could be sellable to. And it's just a good way to kind of get thinking about how you could be self-employed. I've done it and it always comes back, you should be a fractional COO. I'm like, yeah, I know.
I'd never thought of actually doing it in that way, but yeah, it's definitely good advice and it's working for you. And but what I want to know now as we begin to wrap up,
Yeah.
what, Mary Alice, are your goals? What's the future look like for you and your business?
Yeah.
And also, where can people find you online?
Yeah. So what's the future look like? So one of the things that I'm working on right now is thinking through how to scale what I do without having to work more or hire a bunch of people. I've definitely gone down that road before. I had a company, I had a bunch of employees. It was exceptionally stressful worrying about payroll every 2 weeks. And so one of the things I'm working on right now is productizing my intellectual property. So there's a very specific way I work with people. It's extremely human centered. I do have a social work background, so I'm always trying to come at people to understand like where they are, where they come from, what motivates them, what makes them tick. And I think because I do that, it helps me work with people in a way that's successful because I'm actually meeting them where they are, right? So I'm thinking through how to productize my IP and what that might look like. So whether that's courses or a book or workshops or whatever. That's definitely something I'm thinking through. But the future for me is continuing delivering for my clients, expanding my coaching program, and enjoying my life. I like my life.
Love
So,
it.
improving my French, traveling, having a good time.
Sounds good. Sounds good. And where can anybody who's interested in either finding out
Yeah.
more about your COO practice or your coach
Yeah.
practice, where's the best place to look? I think I know what you might say, but
Yeah.
you tell me.
Definitely LinkedIn. That's the only place I hang out. LinkedIn, and I have a newsletter. But yeah, LinkedIn is definitely the first port of call.
Excellent. Thank you. It's been enlightening. It's been entertaining. It's been, energizing. So thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Alex.